Hey, Catherine, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for asking. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Just wanted to take time and thank you for agreeing to participate in this interview that is going to be going out to the Morehouse College students. Really looking forward to learning a little bit about your past and giving some of the students an idea of what potential careers look like, both here at GitLab and in the industry overall. So, what we're going to do is just have an interview that lasts for a few minutes and it's really informal. And the idea is, once again, is just to get to know you. Does that work?
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right, wonderful. So, first question, Catherine, tell us your name, a little bit about yourself and your background.
Sure. My name is Katherine Okpara, and I am a UX user experience researcher based in San Francisco, California. I studied psychology for my undergraduate degree, and from that point, I went on to study UX and UX design and started to transition into software development in the tech industry. A little bit more about me. I am originally from Southern California and I moved up to the Bay for university.
Nice, nice. So, tell me, when you say user experience researcher, what does that sort of mean?
Yes, so user experience research is basically a process that teams use to get more confidence around their design decisions. So through research, we interact with our users, understand their needs, investigate pain points, and basically use research as a way to better understand our users and understand the features that we need to build next and how to improve the experience for our customers overall.
So, are you customer facing all the time? So, are you constantly like emailing customers like, "Hey, I want to talk to you about your experience"? Like, how do you get that actual information back?
Sure, from a variety of ways. So usually it'll start with a research question or research proposal. So if a product manager wants to learn a bit more about the demand for a certain feature or how many customers are impacted by a challenge, what we'll do at that point is create a hypothesis and we'll figure out who we need to speak with. And we might use a method like a survey. So that would just be us collecting as much data as possible, answering some questions. We might conduct some interviews where we sit one-on-one with customers to discuss their challenges, their workflows, their pain points, things like that, or we might use other methods. So it's kind of a mixture. There's often times where I'm doing a lot of interviews and it's very customer facing, but then there are other periods where I'm doing a lot of data analysis and I'm just reviewing survey responses, I'm planning the next research study, things like that.
Oh, wow. So, so give me an idea of how long it takes to identify a customer, right? And say, all right, we want to get information back from this particular customer. Tell me how long that process is from start to finish. And what are some of the things that you have to do to ensure that that data is actually quality?
Sure. So I'll give you an example because we have basically different scenarios. Sometimes we're speaking with our customers, and other times we're speaking with our open source community who may or may not be paid customers. They might just be users of our free tier. So with our paid customers, once we have some criteria, maybe we need to know the size of the company, the people that are using the features. So do we need to talk to software developers at that company, or do we need to talk to executives? We kind of figure out who we need to speak with, and then we might connect with a technical account manager at GitLab if to see if they have some connections that we can tap into directly. That will just kind of save us some time on the recruiting process.
Hmm.
And if that doesn't pan out, then we need to go about it the typical way, which is to use our mailing list to reach out to our users. So at that point, we would just go into our mailing database, look up the potential participants based off of the criteria, write out some emails, and hope that they respond. And once they respond, schedule some calls with them. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So, how much time does that take in your experience here?
Ooh, so for particularly complex studies, so say we want the paid customers at large enterprises and they need to be leaders or executives, that could take that could take a couple of days. So what the actual process of sending the email will be very quick, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but we might have to wait to hear back from them. And then we might take more time to do the scheduling of that. So I would say anywhere from a day to a couple of days is how long it would typically take.
Okay. And so you get this feedback, right? So then what do you do with that feedback?
So once we get the feedback, we move into the data analysis phase. And what we're doing at that point is trying to answer our original research question. So if we wanted to know how often our customer did a certain thing, or what were the biggest pain points that they have, we take that data and we try to find the answers to that question. And so we'll maybe use methods like um, thematic analysis, which is basically coming up with different themes and patterns that you're observing in the data as a way to break it down and further categorize the information you're gathering. And then what you do with those little nuggets and findings is that you use them to create an insight, which is basically your main takeaway from the study. And that insight, in the best case scenario, is going to tell you, what can you do next? So is this a problem worth going after? Is this a usability issue that needs to be fixed? Is it severe? How many people are interested in a certain thing? Should we build it? The insights from that research will give you confidence or sort of a direction to take next is the overall goal.
Okay. And how long have you been? That's very cool. Thank you. So how long have you been doing that here at GitLab?
Yeah, so at GitLab, I've been doing this for 3 years. It's just past my 3-year anniversary at GitLab last month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's been really interesting because when I first started at GitLab, I came in as a junior UX researcher, and I was able to move up to be an intermediate UX researcher in the span of that time. So when I first came in, I was doing a lot less. I had a much smaller scope than I do now. And we were also working in a different way because the company was a lot smaller, the team was smaller, the product scope was smaller. So it's definitely has been interesting to see how it has changed over time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure. So how much coding do you do on a daily basis?
For me, as a UX researcher that is more qualitative, I don't do very much coding, although these days I'm starting to look into SQL, which is
Wait, time out. You work in tech and you don't do coding?
yes.
This is
So
fascinating. This
so
is
this is this
so
is very interesting.
so
Yes.
please, for our students, take us back. How then did you make the transition from being in college to being in a tech company and not necessarily being a coder? How did that look?
That's a great question. So for me, I first was exposed to all of this when I was in university. So though I was studying psychology, I was also interested in courses related to cognitive science, design, and data science. And all of those areas tend to be related to engineering in some way. They kind of bump against it, and you can go deeper into it, or you can stay more on the information side of things and not get as much hands-on coding practice. But in my case, I took a couple data science classes, and that started to teach me about software development and also just how these things are applied in real life. So how basically how you take what you're learning from your data and apply it to a company. And so that's where I started to get interested in shifting from more of the academic research mindset, which is where I was intending to go with psychology, and starting to think of how I could find applications for psychology in the tech industry to kind of bridge the gap there. So taking those classes and just getting exposure to different subjects is how I ended up being able to enter the tech industry, and getting exposure to some level of computer science, even though I didn't actively do it in my day-to-day work, has been helpful in terms of the people that I collaborate with. So a lot of technical product managers, engineers, designers that also have coding experience, just being able to have a shared knowledge with them is also very valuable.
Wow, so you don't have to be a coder to work in tech. Look at
You
that.
don't, you do
Look at
not.
that. Okay, okay. So when you were then in college, did you intern for any tech companies?
So when I was in college, I didn't do any tech internships because I was all on the mindset of academic research. So I did a lot of research positions.
Okay.
So that was where I would have some big lofty hypothesis, and then I would carry out those research studies alongside a graduate student or studies that I was doing on my own. But that actually highlighted a gap for me when I first was graduating. I had to find ways to get more hands-on experience in the tech industry. So what happened next was that after graduating, I attended a conference that was just about elder care. So the purpose of the conference was just to highlight innovations related to aging in fields like technology, social work, medicine, things like that. It was a very interdisciplinary conference. And at that conference, through networking, I was able to connect with an early stage startup. And that's where I got the opportunity to start getting hands-on experience. So at that startup, which was creating a marketplace app for that would connect caregivers to seniors, that's where I started to get experience with product management, working with developers, working with designers, getting business requirements. So networking at that conference was the way that I got my first internship after graduating.
Gotcha. So then how did you then end up here at GitLab doing UX research?
Yeah. So basically, after that point of the conference, what I saw was an opportunity to use that experience at the small startup to start building up my portfolio and building more examples of how I work in industry setting versus like in the academic setting. So at that small startup, you know how they are. I was having to take on a lot more work and wear many hats, but it was my opportunity to show, hey, I know a little bit something about business analysis. I also know a little bit about UX design. I also can work on a team um, that enables me to communicate with different type of stakeholders and different collaborators. So I worked at that startup for about a year, and that was for me to basically get a couple examples for my portfolio, get more confidence in my skills, and also along the way do some actual more learning about user experience itself. So that's where I was doing a lot of self-study, taking online courses, things like that, that would teach me about design principles, working in a startup, and just different things to keep in mind. And then once I felt like I had kind of gathered enough experience, that's when I decided to apply to GitLab.
Nice. So it seems like you brought a lot of that experience from your previous role here, right? In terms of being able to look at data, wear a bunch of hats, and make actual insights based upon feedback from people. Is that correct?
Exactly.
All
Yes,
right.
exactly.
So it's been 3 years since you've been here at GitLab. What skills, additional skills, have you picked up while you were here at GitLab?
Yeah, so just to talk again about how I started versus where I am now, when I came into GitLab as a junior UX researcher, we were working in more of a consultancy model as the research team. So there were two of us, and product managers and maybe our leaders and designers would bring a research proposal to us, and we'd work on that proposal. Then we'd throw the insights over at them over the wall, and they'd kind of take the insights and go away. But uh, over the years, we've evolved to a more collaborative model where we're emphasizing more mentorship and making other team members able to do their own research as well. So teaching them how research is done, why research is important, and kind of simplifying the process while also still keeping the same quality. So one of the biggest skills that I've developed over the years is the skill of mentorship and teaching other researchers, but other designers and product managers as well about research. And then also just other things that are more practical, like managing a larger number of projects simultaneously. So project management, setting expectations with stakeholders, communicating deadlines, things like that. And then also other things that come with working at a remote company. So working with people of different cultures, working across time zones, being a manager of one, making sure that I keep myself on track, just a lot of things like that as well. I picked up over the years at GitLab.
Nice, nice, good stuff. So think back to your 20-year-old self, right? Who was, in college, etc. What advice would you give your 20-year-old self if you could?
Oh, that's a good question because when I was first leaving, it was a complicated time because I had all this time been wondering and thinking, I'm going to go towards academic research. I'm going to go do my PhD. Then I got sidetracked and I was interested in something else. But I wasn't really sure how to show people my potential. So, what I would tell myself now is to know how to highlight my strength and tell a cohesive story. So, along the way, you do a lot of different experiences. You get involved in different extracurricular activities, take different courses. You gain a lot of great skills, and you need to be able to demonstrate that to people and show what you bring to the table. So, knowing how to communicate the value of your skills and demonstrating your ability to kind of be flexible and adapt to different roles, I would say, is what the advice I give myself.
Okay, okay, nice, nice. Now, for the 20-year-olds who are watching this currently, what advice would you give them in 2021?
So I would say there's a lot of competition in the job market right now and always, and it's a very difficult time in general. So I would say it's very important to research the industry that you're interested in joining and understand what skills are kind of considered the minimum requirements and what are the ones that are considered kind of like the high level, the ones that'll make you stand out. Because you kind of want to know what do I need as a minimum, the core areas of experience that I need, but also what will make me attractive as a candidate, what will stand out from the crowd. And then you can make a learning plan or find ways to gain more experience to get those skills that are in high demand. So I would suggest just doing more research into the industry to kind of see what's needed for the role and what is kind of like a nice to have, because you can
Mhm.
kind of get some of those nice to haves and that will boost you up a bit.
Nice. And that actually leads me to my next question. So when we talk about the industry, my last and final question, when we talk about the industry, how do you see the industry transforming over the next 3 to 5 years? And what should these students prepare for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, it's 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 harder to say the specifics, but I would say generally speaking, this industry is going to continue to push the boundaries of what we know and strive for more and more innovation. So bringing in new technologies and kind of bridging. I see a lot of bridging together of the old way of doing things with adding in new technologies or automation. So I would say it's important for young people to prepare themselves to be adaptable and open to learning new skills and new subject matter, because the more that you're able to take on new topics or take on new skills as your company needs it, because maybe one day your company will say, hey, we need to do this to be more competitive with that company. Do you know anything about that? Instead of kind of shying away from it, you might say, I might not know it now, but I can learn more about it. And figuring out how to learn those new skills, I think, will be really important because the industry will always be quickly evolving. And it's kind of a competition to keep up with the next company and
Sure.
things like that. So
Sure.
having those core areas of expertise, but also being able to learn new skills and keeping on top of what's relevant in your industry.
Nice. Good advice. Great advice, in fact. So thank you. That was my last question. So anything else you'd like to say to the students?
No, I would just say, even when it's discouraging, if you're looking into a new position, just stay focused and stay excited about it because that will shine through you when you're in your interviews and when you're networking and things like that. People can see the passion. They can see the potential in you. Even if you don't feel like you're fully there yet, they can see the potential for you to get there. So that would be my advice.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, Katherine, thank you so much for your time. This has been great.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for this.
Of course. Of course. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.